It would take something like this to finally get me to come back and make a video.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
She's gone. After all of this time, after all of us talking about this for years now, basically since the handful of YouTubers that came out in 2018 and were like, you know what? The Last Jedi actually was pretty bad. Basically, since that time frame, 8 years ago now, we have wanted Kathleen Kennedy to be gone. You know, what I find most interesting about all of this is that for 8 years, we've been sitting back and we've been hoping. But the truth is that it was dead. It was dead in 2015. You can even make the argument that it was dead the moment Disney bought it. Star Wars is something. And what Star Wars is, no matter how many Andor fans or Ahsoka fans or even Clone Wars fans are out there, and I love all the things I just said, no matter how many of us there are out there, it doesn't matter. Star Wars is the hero's journey, delivered to us in a family-friendly and technologically forward way. That's what Star Wars is. It isn't anything else. When George Lucas comes along and he talks about how it's about family and it's about this small family's story and how that story affects everybody around them, how it's this story that's trying to expand the ideas of faith into young people, spirituality into young people. All of that is part of the idea of the hero's journey myth. That's what Star Wars is. And we haven't seen that, with the exception of Rebels. Rebels is the only thing that they have made since the original 6 films that has been that story. And I'm not saying that Rebels is the savior of all of this. It obviously is not. It was low budget. The artistic style was very deliberate and not something that everybody dug. Rebels was an absolutely great story, is telling the hero's journey in a new way, in a new format, in a television format. And it was something that the entire family can enjoy. And it was very, very good. But it still was not the savior of Star Wars. The reality is that when The Force Awakens came out, Star Wars was already dead and we just didn't know it yet. Now, I want to talk about what actually happened here. And I'm just going to put some kind of points in here, some kind of bullet points, because I really want to try to highlight the reasons why this failed. And to tell you the truth, I'm going to give you a pessimistic view of the future here. What really happened, what really kind of narrowed this whole thing down is that when Disney bought it, when Bob Iger goes and he's signing the paperwork with George Lucas, and look, to be fair, I was hopeful. I thought that there was going to be a new series and it was going to be great. There was not even this idea in my mind that it was ever going to fail. And when this movie came out, I was still excited, even though I hated what they did to Han Solo. I was excited. And when The Last Jedi came out, I hated it. I hated it. I didn't know why I hated it. I didn't even know what was really going on. I just knew that after the first time I saw it, I hated it. Then I saw Jeremy on Geeks Gamers basically rip it apart, which is the video that kind of sparked his entire channel. And I realized just how much I really did hate it. I realized just how much they had ruined it. And there was no way around it. There was no way around how terrible that movie really was. Now, what I want to say is why. One of the things that's interesting, and I think that it's something that, you know, if you ever decide that you want to go down some rabbit holes in YouTube, go to Star Wars videos that were made prior to 2015. I think that this is an interesting thing to do because it's been 11 years since The Force Awakens came out, and even longer if we're talking about videos that came out prior to 2015. Everything that happened after 1999 all the way until today, everything that came out, whether it was movie articles or whether it was interviews or whether it was even just jokes that were made on television shows or online or whatever it was, even before YouTube was kind of a thing, it was basically making fun of the prequel trilogy. And maybe a lot of people that are kind of younger don't know this, but everybody hated it. It was very, very well known as not being liked. If you're a Gen Xer or if you're a boomer or older, you didn't like the prequel trilogy. And a lot of people will say it was because, you know, they grew up or they grew out of it. And the reality is that the majority of people hated it because Jar Jar Binks was there and the writing was bad. And it still is. And I love the prequel trilogy. I really do. And I feel like I always have to say this because people come after me because I say these things. It is absolutely not better than the original trilogy. It is objectively not better than the original trilogy, but it is good. And I do like it. But there are decisions that were made that just turned people off. And the thing that saved the prequel trilogy over the course of the last 10 years, it really has been basically because the sequel trilogy was so bad, people were like, well, you know what, at least these were somewhat good, Gen Xers going back and watching me like, maybe I'd give it another chance because I just want good Star Wars and this is better than the garbage they're giving me. And I think a lot of that happened. But I think that the other savior part of the prequel trilogy is that people that were kids when the prequel trilogy came out, they freaking love it. If you are somewhere between the ages of 18 and 35, you probably love the prequel trilogy. You probably like the prequel trilogy more than you do the original trilogy. And I get that. I understand that people, that this is the thing that they grew up with. And I get that. And especially, and I've actually had a lot of fans and I talked to a lot of people tell me specifically that they like Clone Wars more than they like literally all of it. And I find that nuts. That to me is crazy because as much as I like Clone Wars, there are episodes that are just not watchable. There's a video I talk about this. But here's the thing, and I know that I'm going all over the place, but I promise I'm trying to hone in on something here. And what I'm trying to hone in on is the people that made the sequel trilogy hated the prequel trilogy. They thought it was a mistake, and they thought the fans were with them. They thought that everybody was with them. That if they were going to come in and they were going to make something and it was going to basically spit in the face of the prequel trilogy fans, that everybody was going to be with them. That there weren't any prequel trilogy fans. That was the mistake that they made. They went and they saw that the Clone Wars lost money every single year that it was made and were like, see, there's no fans. Not realizing that it cost more money than it was made because George Lucas was trying new, different technology every single time he makes something. And the Clone Wars was no different. So he spent more money making that than he made. But there are still millions of fans. And the prequel trilogy is exactly like this. There are literally millions of fans. People love that trilogy, even though they're not the people that are J.J. Abrams' age, that are Kathleen Kennedy's age, the boomers, the Gen Xers, all of these people that absolutely hated it, that were at that point in charge of Star Wars, making Star Wars movies. These people thought they were doing us all a favor. What they didn't seem to realize was that by making something new and while also at the same time trying to basically copy something old, they were disrespecting every single person in sight. Every single fan, George Lucas himself, everybody. They were disrespecting us all. You killed Han Solo in the first movie and you made him a deadbeat dad. You regressed his character so badly that he threw everything that he grew from away. And you did it off screen. And then when you bring him to us, he's just this loser. You made Princess Leia the only character that's still on her path of leadership. You made some silly thing called the Resistance that's not resisting the government, but resisting another government and another sector of the galaxy. It doesn't make any damn sense at all. And you made Luke Skywalker afraid. The person who faced down the Emperor, who loves his sister, loves his best friend Han like a freaking brother, and you made him a loser. You made him a fearful loser. He gave up his lightsaber and was willing to let the Force make the decision of his own life, hoping that his father would save him, but letting the Force decide his life. And he threw his lightsaber away in the face of the most dangerous, powerful person in the galaxy. The most evil, wretched piece of garbage in the galaxy. And he looked that person in the face and he told him, you're wrong. And he threw away his lightsaber. And he said, I'm a Jedi Knight. And you took that person and you made him almost murder his nephew. That's what you did. Unbelievably stupid. And that's the problem. If we want to get down to what really is Kathleen Kennedy's legacy, it's that Kathleen Kennedy just didn't understand this stuff. And you know what? To be fair, I want to talk about a little bit about this woke stuff that's in there. And I know, people that get pissed at me when I talk about this, and other people love it when I talk about this. But truthfully, they put a lot of modern day politics into Star Wars and other Lucasfilm products and other Disney products and movies throughout the entirety of Hollywood. So much so that Hollywood is almost completely dead and is being replaced by crappy movies and television shows made by streaming services in completely different countries or states because they can't afford to make anything in Hollywood anymore. That's how much they ruined it. Their entire business model. I know a lot of people like to think that Netflix and Amazon and all of these places that people are getting their streaming from, that they all kind of coexist with Hollywood. They actually don't. Most of the stuff that gets made is not made on the lot anymore. Where we used to make movies on the Paramount lot, on the Warner Brothers lot, where we used to have movies be made, those are all going away. That's all dying off. There are people losing their jobs. There are corporations that are getting bought and eaten up by these major, huge streaming companies. And it's all happening because of this last 10 to 15 years where they have been shoving this stuff in our freaking face. And I know that people are like, well, I don't know why we need to talk about politics, in movies. Just don't watch those movies. I'm not sitting here trying to say don't put trans crap or gay couples or make every single female a hero like I have in all these other videos. I've already done that. You want to go and watch those? Go and watch those. What I'm saying is the audience didn't like it. They didn't like it. And Kathleen Kennedy took the biggest property on flippin' earth. And she did that. She put modern day politics in her movies and shows, and they all thought it was going to work. And she might have single-handedly destroyed Hollywood. She might have actually done that. So when I sit here and I tell you that Star Wars is dead, it isn't just Star Wars, it's all things. It's all Hollywood. All this stuff is dead. There isn't anything to latch onto as a fandom anymore. Star Trek is so woke, it's disgusting to watch. It's so hard to even wrap my mind around trying to watch that garbage now. Star Wars is I don't think it's as far as other ones, but The Acolyte's pretty bad, dude. Like, it's really bad. Even Stranger Things couldn't help themselves, right? They couldn't help themselves. Everything out there has to have this stuff in it, and it's ruining our entertainment. So herein lies the reality. Kathleen Kennedy, I do wish her as a human being, I wish her the best. But here's the truth. I'm also a Christian, and as a Christian, I believe in truth over all things. And I hope that she learns the truth of what's really going on. And the truth is they put moral ambiguity into a story that doesn't have any. That's what they did. They went in there and she basically lied to everybody when she said she was going to respect these characters and that she was going to respect George Lucas and the way that they created it. She definitely lied about all of that. Because they immediately didn't do that. From Jump Street, they immediately didn't do that. They made this movie specifically to shit on the prequel trilogy. That's what they did. They did it on purpose. Go and watch the making of video clips that J.J. Abrams used to be putting out on the internet. That's what they were doing. The entire team was basically just shitting on the prequel trilogy. And they were trying to appeal to the original trilogy fans and basically was just shitting on George's legacy. That's really what they were doing. I don't think that if you go and you watch Star Wars Theory's video, I'm going to put a link in the description where he's talking about Kathleen Kennedy's kind of exit interview. She obviously doesn't see it. And look, sometimes I love Star Wars Theory and sometimes I'm like, okay, easy on the George hero worship. Chill out. I think he's an imperfect human being just like everybody else. But I do think that in this regard, if you watch this video, I think Star Wars Theory does a great job at explaining that she just absolutely doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. She's not self-aware, or she is, and she's lying. I think truth is the number one of all things. If you can understand that you made a mistake and you kind of stuck with it and you kind of shoved it in people's faces and through your own pride, you refused to give in to what everybody wanted from you, that you took this over, you made it yours through your own pride, and you destroyed it. That to me, in Hollywood, we will look back at this moment and not the moment of her leaving. I'm talking about the 2012, 2013 timeframe when they took over Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy was at the helm of Lucasfilm and they destroyed it. That right there is the thing we will remember in time when we, 50 years from now, when they look and they're like, what destroyed Hollywood? This will be a very large portion of that. Now, I've complained about her enough, to get to a more pessimistic view of what's going to happen in the future. I don't think that Dave Filoni's the guy. I used to think that he was, and you can go watch some of my older videos where I did say that. But Dave Filoni has kind of proved in interviews over the last 10 years that he's kind of a male feminist. And I don't think, maybe he's been poisoned by this, or maybe he's just been lying in wait. But whatever loyalty that he had to be able to make stories that were specifically about Star Wars, when he made Ahsoka, he kind of proved to me, okay, maybe he doesn't have it. That was that, when you go back and you watch it, and I've gone back and I've watched a little bit of it, it's really hard to get through. First off, it's really not that good a show. And second off, it's actually really difficult to get around how bad making Sabine a Jedi really was. Right. It doesn't. If you just put your brain power to any of it whatsoever, it just is such a contradiction of the way that not only that he made Rebels, but the way that Star Wars has been made in general. And we're just kind of taking all of this stuff and we're just kind of wrecking it. Any kind of idea of midichlorians or any kind of idea that anything that George made, we're just kind of wrecking that now. And even Dave Filoni is taking part in that. And there's very obviously a loyalty to his own character in Ahsoka Tano that I don't think is warranted anymore. I think Ahsoka should have died a long time ago, because at this point, we actually have Ahsoka existing from the prequel trilogy to probably up to the sequel trilogy. I mean, I know they've got her voice in the very last episode. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so bad. Look, they have Ahsoka existing now kind of in the background of all of this stuff, and it's starting to get in the way, right? Ahsoka's character, in my opinion, is just not any good anymore. She should have died with Vader in Rebels, or probably more artistically, she should have died in Clone Wars. I think that would have been a better place for her to die. I think it would have helped Anakin to fall even further. I think that it was a mistake. And I think it's continued to be a mistake to try to kind of keep her around. So I don't think that Dave Filoni is the guy. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that he basically comes in and just freaking cleans house. And he's just like, nope, this has been a mistake. We have been screwing up since Jump Street. And they just get rid of everything. I really hope that he's that guy, but I don't believe it anymore. I used to, but after Ahsoka, I just don't believe it anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future of Star Wars, but I'm not as hopeful. I watched a lot of different people talk about this, from The Drinker all the way to Star Wars Theory, Thor Skywalker. I wanted to be able to listen and hear what all these people had to say about it before I made this video. But the truth is, I'm not as optimistic as some, and I'm not as pessimistic as others. I'm not somewhere in the middle either. I'm more pessimistic than I am in the middle. I don't think that Dave Filoni is the guy. And I think that I'm starting to actually have in my mind this idea that I hope that at some point in my life, Star Wars is fixed. But I'm not confident anymore that that's going to happen. Anyway, let's get to some of your comments that you guys have been saying over in other people's channels talking about this, right? There's Greg Mize01. This is on Thor Skywalker's video talking about how, Kathleen Kennedy is finally gone. And he says nothing will change. And my fear is that this is, and I'm going to go there, it's going to be like kind of like Venezuela when Hugo Chavez got cancer and died and they got Maduro. They're like, the people were probably like, yay, Chavez is dead. Now we got Maduro. Yay. And this is probably what this is going to be like, because the truth is that I don't think Dave Filoni is going to make a whole lot of changes. Dar Sirius says, if Kathleen Kennedy wanted to run a successful business, then she did one of the worst jobs I've seen as a leader. And that's true. The One True Wonderfly, this is again on Thor Skywalker's video, says, is this a win or loss? It's something different. I'll take something different at this point. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, sure. I'm gonna hope that there's something better. This is from Big Boy 5545. Says, all I can say at this point is, who cares? The damage has long since been done. And the fact that it took this long for Kathleen Kennedy to go proves Disney doesn't care about Star Wars any more than I do now. And that's something that's, it has 142 likes on it, 45 replies. I want to say that this is the biggest problem. She was so stubborn about leaving and doing whatever it was that got her to stay. I guarantee you Bob Iger does not want her there anymore. I guarantee you that she's got something on these guys that keeps her there. Because this whole thing where she was behind the scenes saying and doing all these different things and just making everything terrible. I think that and there was somebody that had come out with it. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Film Threat, where they talked about how she's not going to leave until she leaves on a win. But there's a certain point where you're there for so long and it's not happening. Andor, I think, was the win that she needed to feel like she did something before she leaves, but it doesn't really matter. She did the damage. Star Wars as a whole, right? This is the entirety of what Star Wars is that lives in the minds of all the fans out there. That's gone. And she did that. And that's something to understand, is that she did that. She killed it. There is no other way around it. She can make something good. She can even have, a whole series that people really like. It doesn't matter, because you destroyed the way that Star Wars exists in our minds, in our heads. That's gone. You wrecked it. Okay, now these comments are coming from Star Wars Theories. It's finally over. Getting into the comments here. This one's from Liz Gra 82. Kathy didn't want to run George Lucas's franchise. She wanted to run her franchise. That is why she blatantly lied about there being no ideas or scripts for further Star Wars movies. She wanted the future of Star Wars to be her vision, not a continuation of George Lucas's vision. She stabbed him in the back the moment she got power. She's a traitor, a liar, and a gaslighter. I don't wish her luck with her next projects. Once a franchise destroyer, always a franchise destroyer. Do not trust this woman with your franchises. That's hilarious. That's brutal and absolutely true. I think that, it's not that I don't wish her luck in her future life. I don't wish her success without truth. That's something that she needs to understand what she's doing. But she absolutely wanted this to be about her. She absolutely wanted to make Star Wars a girl brand. It didn't work. Girls do not buy stuff the way that guys do. They just don't. And this wrecked that. Girls do not, by and large, right? And I'm not saying it for you out there. There are people out there who are this way that are girls, and that's fine. That's great. You are not the majority. The majority of Star Wars fans are boys, and boys like Star Wars for their whole life until Kathleen Kennedy came along. This one comes from Axelet. I think I'm saying that right. It says, now we need to retcon everything from episode 7, the same way that Kathleen Kennedy retconned the expanded universe and Legends. We'll rename everything made from Kathleen Kennedy as Star Wars Nightmares. That's pretty good, actually. I like that a lot. And this is the toughest part. I think that Disney knows. I don't think that they don't know. I think that they know. I think that they know that the best thing that they could do is to retcon everything. I think they know that, but I don't think that they believe they can survive, the marketplace. I don't think that they can survive their own board of directors. I don't think that Disney believes that they can survive the social fallout from doing exactly that. I think that if they retcon absolutely everything that Kathleen Kennedy made, they are not only admitting fault, but I think that they will have every feminist, every single person out there that is willing to dox these people, that are willing to go and protest over at their buildings, over at their studios, that the people inside their own company, that if they did that, that they would basically destroy their own company by doing that. And I think that they know that that's true, right? It's the best way that they can make Star Wars successful and probably the worst thing that they can do for their company. I still wish that they would. I wish they'd have the balls to do it. But there's a very good chance that if Disney actually retconned everything, that they would actually destroy their own company internally. And then I'm going to finish off by what Star Wars Theory said. He said, today we can all rejoice as one fandom. I wish for better Star Wars days ahead of us. I hope these are the final dark days. We've been through so much together, and I wouldn't have gone through this with any other community. I love you guys. And I think that's a really good sentiment. I know that I've been watching Star Wars Theory for a while. And while I don't agree with him all the time, I think that he has been, obviously he is the biggest Star Wars channel out there that isn't the Star Wars channel. For a while, he was the biggest Star Wars channel out there, period. But I do think that, he has been this kind of ever-present Star Wars fan, and in a fandom that's not only dying, but the fact that fandom in general is starting to die. And I think that, again, it's because the last 10 years, they've just been ruining every franchise out there. It doesn't matter if it's Marvel. It doesn't matter if it's Indiana Jones, even Willow, for crying out loud, The Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, obviously Star Wars, Star Trek, even video game franchises, Halo, Mass Effect. They're all ruined now. They're all ruined. That's what's actually going on. And I think that, guys like Star Wars Theory that just kind of take it, man. They just take it. They're constantly, even his own fandom comes after him sometimes for the things that he says. It just kind of stays this ever-present light of Star Wars fandom. That's great. And I'm glad that he's there. I hope that he's right. I don't believe that he is. I hope that he is. I'm not trying to bring things to, the most pessimistic state, but I just don't believe that Dave Filoni is the guy. I hope that he is. And Dave, if you're watching this, I seriously doubt that you are. I hope that you take the fans seriously this time. I hope that you take the hero's journey seriously this time. Good storytelling. Get the woke garbage out of there. And for crying out loud, start making male heroes great again. We got to stop it with all of this Mary Sue garbage. Nobody likes it. Anyway, thanks for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Now, I'm going to challenge you guys to something that I really want serious answers here. And I want serious answers because I want you to think about it. What do you really think it would take to get Star Wars back on track? What would it actually take to get you as a Fallen fan or to get other Fallen fans in general back to the fold. And if you really believe that it's retconning and if you really believe that, then fine, say that. But I want to know what you really think. What's the very minimum thing that they need to do in order to bring you back? And really put your brain power to that, because in my opinion, I don't think that they need to retcon everything to bring everybody back. I do think they need to shift up the canon a little bit in order to get people back. And I do think that they need to start focusing on general stories that have existed for thousands of years, put into the Star Wars universe, that are for the whole family, that do not have modern day politics in it. And if they don't do that, and they don't do it soon, I think that we're going to be looking at 10 years, 15 years at least, or somebody else buying Star Wars outright for this to ever be fixed. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. I hope I've earned your subscription. I'm the Germexican, and I'll see you next time.